It's been about 12 years ago that my guest, Pete Wilson, founded Crosspoint Church in Nashville, Tennessee, and he is with us today. Pete, it's great to see you.
Great to be here.
You look good for a pastor. Did you have any gray hair when you started the church?
Very little, and it's amazing how in 11, 12 years, like, it has really come on strong.
Right.
I say 11 years in church ministries, it's kind of like dog years.
Yes,
you know?
right. That's right. It multiplies.
That's right.
So it's like you're the young man with the old hair, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us, the church is doing well. What's the website so we can get that?
It's crosspoint.tv. Crosspoint.tv.
All right, I'm Crossroads, forgive me.
I know, you guys are Crossroads.
And I'll be cross-eyed here in just a minute. Church is multi-site, edgy, contemporary. Just give us a quick flyover of what it is that's happening there.
You know, it's amazing. It's been an incredible journey over this past, 11 years, and just watching what God's doing. And honestly, I feel like we're just holding on really tight, and God's doing His thing. And our daily prayer is, God, just help us to not get in the way of what you're doing here.
And technology allowed you just to multiply yourself over
Absolutely.
and over again. So you've got 5 different locations?
Yeah, we have 5 different campuses all around the Nashville area, and which is really neat. It's as the church has gotten larger, it's allowed us to get smaller and have campuses in kind of smaller communities around the Nashville area. And it's just a blast. I mean, I'm really honored and don't have a clue why God's allowed us to be a part of such a really cool movement. But it's humbling for sure. Well,
we're glad that you're with us today. We're going to have a couple of segments to talk, and there's a lot to dig into. You've written this book that I've dug into called Let Hope In, and it's available for you on our e-store. And I hope you'll listen carefully as we talk to Pete about the book. As you have been that pastor who has been laying down track as fast as you can because the train keeps coming, somehow you found time to write. And this book was very compelling to me because it's filled with tremendous lessons of grace and tolerance and patience and understanding. And it really seemed to flow well with what we try to do here at 100 Huntley Street and Crossroads and the pieces we're communicating. So I want to dig into this, but give me the big idea before we start getting into the detail of these 4 major points that you want to make in the book.
Sure. Yeah, the whole idea behind the book was, as a pastor, I'm in contact with people on a daily basis. And it was very interesting for me to see how so many people, regardless of their age, I mean, people in their 20s, people in their 80s, people who had been Christians for decades, how when I would meet with them, there seemed to be a lack of hope. Even with people who I believe should have the greatest hope of anyone in the world.
And people that know the Lord a long time.
Absolutely. And it was just interesting to me. Why is that? Why is it that people that have been walking with the Lord for so long still have such a deficit of hope in their life? And so it really put me on a journey to say, all right, what is it? Why as Christians are we often missing, I believe, the life that God has called us to live? What is it that is robbing us of the hope that actually the Bible calls us to have as believers? So that was really the catalyst for me in this book.
Okay, Pete, we are a collection of our choices.
Yep.
I taught our children for years. Now they're both married adults. I told them, I said, the choices we make dictate the lives we lead. And
that's right.
That's the preamble to me asking you these questions. You decided to lay out, say basically in life, there are 4 choices that Christ followers make.
Yep.
And if you don't make the right choice, it will have implications. If you do make the right choice, it will have implications. Can I walk you through the choices?
Absolutely.
Would you be okay with that?
Absolutely.
And okay, so choice number 1 in the book, and the subtitle, Let Hope In, 4 choices that will change your life forever.
Strong, isn't it?
Forever. So here's choice number 1. And it may not be as pure as if we were reading it in the book here, but you need to transform or be transformed instead of transferring. If you don't transform, then you will simply transfer. So I take that, if I don't deal with this anger issue and experience the transformational forgiveness of God and the transformational responsibility of treating people appropriately, what's going to happen? I'm just going to, if I've got that baggage in my life, I'm just going to transfer it to other people? Is that the point here?
That's the point. The idea here, and I think breaking the book down to choices was important for me, because I do believe that hope is a choice. Hope is not something that just happens to you. And as believers, we have that opportunity to choose hope, regardless of what circumstances you might be going through. And so that first choice of, am I going to allow my pain to be transformed, or am I just going to transfer the pain? And I've heard, my whole life, I've heard people say, your past is your past. Well, that's not actually true. Your past is not really your past if it's still impacting your present.
So your past is your present if you haven't dealt with your past.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people assume because something happened in 5 years or 10 years ago or 20 years ago that, well, that's over, that's the past. It's not. If it's impacting your present, it's not really the past. And so if you don't find a way to allow that pain to be transformed, you're always going to transfer it. And you'll transfer it from relationship to relationship. You'll transfer it from job to job, from decade to decade.
Generation to generation. Absolutely. With your kids.
And that's what's happened to a lot of us. It just got, there are generational sins that were never transformed that have been transferred down to us.
You do a great job talking about the difference between shame and guilt. Shame, not good.
Right.
Guilt, healthy.
Absolutely, it can be.
Work us through shame, because sometimes we've been parented by shame, or we have seen guilt in the wrong or inappropriate context or definitions.
Yeah, I think I write about this idea that shame is it's the heartache of every era, and I think there's a lot of people that are literally dying from shame. Some quickly, others slowly, but it's impacting their life in unbelievable ways. And my distinction between shame and guilt is this. Guilt is the acknowledgement, it's the realization that I did something wrong. And that can be a very healthy thing for all of us.
And to accept personal responsibility.
Yes,
I
did something wrong. I was wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. Not what I did was wrong, but I am wrong. And so what happens with shame is you start kind of adopting this belief that, you know what, other people are acceptable, but I'm not acceptable. Other people are worthy of God's love and forgiveness, but I am not. And so what happens with shame is it literally blinds you to the miracle of forgiveness. And you don't see the forgiveness, you don't see the restoration that Jesus is trying to do in your life. So there's a big difference between shame and guilt.
You say shame, and quoting you from the book, is a deep sense, and that word deep is important. It's a deep sense that you are unacceptable because of something you did.
That's right. Yeah, here's the idea. I think that there's a lot of Christians that believe that God loves them, and they almost think God has to love me. God is love, so he has to love me. But they also think that he's very disappointed in them. And I think that is something that can kind of lead people down some dark alleys of shame, of always feeling like God is constantly disappointed in who they are as a person.
There's some preaching that public communication that can create an inappropriate sense of shame.
Absolutely.
And then you get that in the house of God and the house of worship, and it compounds the problem.
Yeah, it does. And I think that this is nothing new in religion. Shame has been used to manipulate people for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so it's not a new problem in the church, but it is a problem in the church, and it's one that we have to be very much aware of.
You say that shame becomes an identity that drives us into self-abusive action.
Yeah, because it locks us in a cycle. Shame is this perpetual cycle that we keep making decisions out of, again, this is who I am, and I'm not worthy of God's love, and I'm not worthy of God's forgiveness. And so we keep repeating the same mistakes. And the reality is the best predictor of your future is in fact your past, unless there's some kind of monumental transformation that takes place in your life.
Did you create a new word? F-R-U-S-T?
Frust.
Frust.
Yeah.
What is that?
Just
take us, as we move out of this segment, I want to know what frust means.
I'm not sure that it is a real word.
You need to get it licensed.
I think that, it's the combination of really dust and frustration. And I joke in the book about when I'm cleaning a house, you know, there's always this little bit of dust that you cannot get into the pan. You just sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, this little line.
That's right.
Yeah.
I call that frust.
So you just put that under the carpet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've all done that. And tie that into this whole idea of choices, of guilt and shame.
Yeah, and I think that's what we do with a lot of our shame. There's this little bit that we hide from everyone. It's exactly what Adam and Eve did in the garden. When we've wronged, we want to hide and we want to run. And that's what we often do, is we try to sweep things under the carpet, but they won't stay underneath there.
Man, I hope you sell a gazillion of these books. I mean, this is just terrific. Let Hope In. And the delightful manner in which you see him communicate here on the interview, it comes through in the book, Let Hope In. He basically presents 4 choices that will change your life forever. We're going to look next, in our next time together, at a couple more of these choices. It's just great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pete. God bless.